Hello everybody, welcome back to another video by Dissociative. This is a channel that's dedicated to educating people about the realities of dissociative identity disorder and erasing the stigmas that surround mental illness. If you don't know what dissociative identity disorder is, it was formerly known as multiple personality disorder in the early 90s and before. It's now known as dissociative identity disorder. It's the same disorder, it's just got a different name. Dissociative identity disorder forms when a child before the ages of 7 to 9, which is when the personality fully integrates into one, experiences repeated trauma. Due to this repeated trauma and some other factors like unstable attachments to the primary caregiver, experiencing repeated trauma before the personality has fully developed into one whole coalesced personality, the child may feel like it's been put in a life or death situation or a situation that it is unable to handle. Therefore, in order to keep these memories and awareness of the trauma that keeps happening to the child separate from a daily life, so that the child can go about living as though it were a normal person without being completely destroyed by the knowledge of the trauma or abuse that was happening to it, the mind puts up amnesic barriers, which means that there is complete memory loss between the different parts of the brain when trauma occurs and when trauma isn't occurring. Around 7 to 9 is when the personality would fully integrate into one personality instead of being various self-states that are responsible for different things like I'm hungry, I want love. As children age, they develop understanding about the world, they learn what's safe and what's not, they learn how to have opinions, how to create their own personality based on the experiences that they've had. These experiences eventually come together to form a fully integrated personality at the ages of 7 to 9. However, if this child has had repeated trauma and unhealthy attachments to the primary caregivers, then it can develop DID, which is when the amnesic barriers that have gone up to protect the child from the awareness of the trauma that's happening to it, these barriers prevent personality from fully integrating. Therefore, this child is left with separate states of awareness, separate banks of memory, some which are aware of trauma and some which aren't. They develop as individual personalities. The brain in the future has then also learned that this is how we deal with trauma. This is how we deal with extreme stress that we feel we're unable to handle. We put up an amnesic wall and we separate that memory off. This is how alters are formed later on in life. But you can only develop DID as a child before the ages of 7 to 9 when the personality fully integrates. A lot of the stigma that surrounds DID is based off the trope that's often portrayed in the media about the evil alter. If you've watched the Split saga, then you'll probably hear of it as the beast, the alter that's going to hurt you, the one that's murderous or a criminal. People with DID are no more likely to harm you than any other member of society. In fact, because everyone with DID has experienced extreme trauma in the past and often cases abuse, they are more likely to fall back into the role of being a victim or being abused rather than being an abuser. Most of the tropes that portray a evil or aggressive alter are based off alters that are known as persecutors. If you've seen one of our oldest videos, I mispronounced this as prosecutors. It's persecutors, and I'm very sorry about that. Persecutors are alters who hold an extreme amount of pain and trauma. Persecutors may act out in ways that seem aggressive or unhelpful, harming the body or being standoffish or aggressive. It's very, very, very unusual that any alter will harm anyone outside of the system. The persecutor alters hold so much trauma, it's almost always turned inwards or on the system itself. So if DID is created as a survival mechanism to help this child to survive trauma, why would there be an alter who is dedicated to trying to tear the system down or trying to hurt the people in it or hurt the body that they use? Lots of persecutors have a convoluted idea of how to keep the system safe. Many people who have DID are very, very, very traumatized, and a lot of those memories are held by persecutors who are trauma holders. They may be filled with feelings of shame, disgust, anger, rage, betrayal, all these negative emotions, this awareness of the horrible, horrible, horrible things that happened to them as children that shouldn't have happened and that they have to hold on to. It is not fair to be left with those memories, to know that that is your purpose in life, technically. as though you've been created to hold these horrible things. How is that a fair life to have? It makes sense that these alters will be furious and hurting and scared. A lot of these alters, these persecutors, will have learned that the best way to keep the system safe, to avoid more abuse, is to continue the behavior of the abusers on themselves. If they're hurting themselves, if they're doing what the abuser was doing on themselves, then the abuser doesn't need to do it. Therefore, they're keeping themselves safe from the abuser. At least the abuse is under their say-so and their hands. Sometimes this is one way that self-harm and aggression between alters can arise. Some alters may choose a particular alter in the system to target and say, this is your fault. You were supposed to keep us safe. You're the reason I'm in so much pain. You're weak. And I'm angry at you. And there's too much feeling for me to be angry at myself. Or maybe they are angry at themselves. But they need to do something about it. They can't go after the abusers. In most cases, they're too powerful. But they can go after and take out this anger, this punishment, this frustration, this pain on the body and other alters inside the system. These are coping mechanisms that may seem to give an immediate sense of release and relief, a form of instant gratification. But these ways of dealing with your trauma and the agony you're feeling are not sustainable. It will not help you feel better in the long run. It will not help you heal, and it will not change what happened to you. The only way to move on from this kind of trauma, to feel the pain to a less overwhelming extent, is to communicate with your system. Lots of persecutors are so wrapped up in their trauma that they feel stuck in a particular time. And the way the body lives now, the life that the person with the ID has, seems alien to them. Some persecutors can be introjects, which means that they are alters that are essentially based off of someone who existed in the real world. This can also be called a factive. So some people may have introjects of their abusers inside their system to perpetuate the abuse that was going on. There can be certain alters that are responsible for taking the body and the system back to the abusers to have more abuse because of trauma bonds and manipulation and fear. Dealing with persecutors can be so frightening. A lot of people have the idea of, oh, I wish I had DID. I wish I had friends in my head all the time. I wish I had somebody who could protect me inside my own mind. There's so much more to DID than that. DID is the most excruciating disorder. Yes, sometimes you can have friends that are your alters that you can hear inside your head. Sometimes you'll have enemies. The people who hurt you in the worst ways you could possibly imagine are there in your head all the time. Some persecutors front and harm the body. I have scars on my body that I never put there, and they're not ever going to go away. I never know if a persecutor fronts, are they going to take us back to the people who hurt us? Are they going to upset somebody I know? I know for a fact that none of my alters would ever physically harm somebody externally to us. The pain that wraps them up is based around the abuse that we experienced. And I know that this is similar for most systems. Dissociative identity disorder is not fun and games. I always try and encourage people to see the positives in this disorder, the ways you can heal, that you can live a normal, successful life with DID. But I am in no way going to make light of how hard this disorder is and the horrible reasons that it exists. If you're hurting, we see you, we hear you, and we feel for you. And I'm so sorry. If you're looking for advice on how to handle persecutors, try not to think of it as, how can I get rid of them? Or how can I lock them up? As that is a way most people tend to view their persecutors, especially if they're new to DID. They view them as inherently evil or inherently bad people. By labeling your alters the evil one, or giving them names like monster or something like that, the only thing you're doing is adding to their pain and fueling their awareness that they are a bad person. What they do are bad things, They can only be the way they are because they were made to be a bad person. The things that happened to them made them a bad person. So they have to keep doing what they're doing. The persecutors in your system are in so much pain. This can change. Try and reach out to them. You don't have to do this in a way that will put you in harm's way, but let them know that you are there to listen, that you accept and that you hear that they're angry, that they're in pain, that they're holding things they should not have to hold. But when you're working with persecutors, you need to be aware that this is a two-way thing. You might be doing all the right things. You might be being patient and reaching out to them and saying, we're here for you when you're ready, and trying to work on, okay, don't harm the body in this way. If you do this, we'll do something else for you. Trying to barter your way into healthier behaviors. But nothing will change until they're ready. Communication is a two-way street. Don't run yourself ragged by throwing yourselves at their feet. When they're ready, they'll be ready. You have to keep that line of communication open because you don't know when they're going to be ready to reach out. But it can't all come from you. And this is either way around. If you're a persecutor and you're trying to reach out for help, or you want to be more active in the system, or you want more say in what goes, and the people who are at the front of the system aren't listening to you, I'm sorry. There are ways that you can reach each other, but you need to try and think about where these other people are coming from. All of you, everybody in the system is trying to keep themselves safe, trying to keep the system safe, whether that's in a convoluted way or not. You may not get on at all. You may despise each other. But at the end of the day, you all exist to keep each other safe. You all share one body. You have to keep that body safe, even if you hate it, even if you are completely repulsed by the body you live in and the people you share it with. You only have one chance. So many bad things have happened to you that should not have happened to you. Do not give them any more power. You deserve to feel good. You deserve to have a good life. It's worth fighting for, it's worth working on, and it's worth the pain. If you want things to change, you have to change the way you're dealing. Alters are people, even non-human alters. They may not be human, but they have feelings. Be patient. Everybody heals at different rates. And I know that it can be scary. I don't even really know how to put into words the kind of fear I feel when I think about my persecutors. But I also respect them. And Ruby was a persecutor. Now she is one of our strongest protectors. Persecutors often make the most incredible protectors. So many protectors I've met have been persecutors in the past. You might not want to, but you need each other. With enough patience and communication, you can live a better life. And I wish you all the best with that. If you don't have DID, please be aware of what systems like us are dealing with. This stuff is heavy. You don't get a break from it. You can't switch this on and off. But no matter what, whether you're a persecutor or not, a system or singular, you deserve to be safe. It is not an excuse to hurt other people just because you're hurting. Your trauma is not an excuse to traumatize other people. You have to take responsibility for your system's actions and for your own actions if you're singular. Just because someone else is suffering, that does not mean you have to carry them. You are responsible for your healing and your healing alone. If somebody is causing you pain, you are absolutely within your rights to leave that situation. Please take care of yourselves. I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into what persecutors are, what that role of being an alter is, and why it comes about. If you would like some advice on how to communicate with persecutor alters, or if you want a video coming from the persecutor side of things, please do let us know. We are more than happy to answer any questions you have and more than happy to make another video on this if you would like. We know you can do this. So to everybody out there, please stay safe. Be aware of the kind of trauma that can happen to people in the world and what these people can be dealing with. There's no way to know what someone else is going through. And that is such an overused, cheesy line. But really, be gentle with yourselves. Be gentle with the people around you. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you'll stay on the channel to learn more about DID if you would like to. We have a Debunking DID playlist, which is a playlist about the science behind DID and the psychology, lots of brain scans, and we have all the studies and medical journals that we use for resources in the descriptions below those videos, so that you can go and check out your own research if you would like to have a look on your own. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Lots of love, everybody. Bye!